This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Forget. That would be disastrous.
Yes. So we're going to do the two intros because we're splitting this up in between Nuff Said and Full Stream. So first I'll do the Nuff Said one, and then I'll do the Full Stream one. And really, I figure, don't know if I'll have to do that again the next time, but because I guess Phil could just drop them back in, but we'll discuss that later, and then we'll do the same with the outros.
Dig it.
Okay. In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there are those who stand between us and them. They are mutants. They are heroes. They are robots. They are villains. And we shall explore their stories here on Nuff Said. Tonight, we discuss WandaVision! Episode 1, Season 1. Wanda and Vision struggle to conceal their powers during dinner with the Vision's boss and his wife. Our director this week is Mark Shackman. Jack Schaefer gets written by credit. Jack Schaefer, that's J-A-C, gets created for television by credit. Stan Lee and Roy Thomas get created by credits. Stan Lee did Wanda Maximoff, and Roy Thomas did Vision. Wow, this is an interesting show. I am really fascinated by what they're doing. I really have to be honest. I think it's interesting in the sense that you get the feeling they have both just arrived here with us. They know as much about what's going on as we do, although there are hints that maybe Wanda knows more. You know, it is very strange. But I think in that when at the very start of this episode, when they're walking into the kitchen and, you know, I believe Vision says, you know, does something seem strange to you? Does something seem off to you? And she says, I know the apron's a bit much, but I'm trying to fit in. Suggesting that, you know, she is aware they don't belong there, but she is working to make them belong there. And I think that is going to be part of the big mystery. And I think we see in episode 2 that we see more of that. Wanda is more in control than she seems. But exactly what's going on in this world is the big question. First off, let me just ask you this. What do you think of the actual conceit of the 50s sitcom format?
I thought it was true to form. It felt like I was watching an old episode of The Honeymooners or Lucy, and this was one of Lucy and Ethel's adventures. It definitely had that feel to it. The setup was exactly the same, and like the commercial break felt great. I liked the little commercials in between. It reminded me of watching those old shows back in the day, and it was short enough where it played nicely. And the acting was really good. The boss, the guy who plays the boss, really good. And Agnes, I think her name was, the next door neighbor.
Yes, Agnes. She's great.
Wonderful, wonderful. I thought it was really, really fun. And you get little subtle hints of something that's going, because it all feels like a dream. It all feels like a bad dream. And then you have like these subtle little things breaking in of like the other side breaking. And then the sort of subtext and the things going on in between, like what does Wanda know? And is she in control? She seems to be. Like that moment where he's choking, and he's sitting there just like, does she have some sort of control over? She goes, Vision, help him. And it seemed like almost like they were existing in 2 dimensions at the same time, and she was speaking to the version of him in the other dimension, saying, you know, or something. There's some weird, but like at times they both seem aware of the entire thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I guess in the second episode, but there's moments where he breaks out of the fake world that they're trying to fool themselves with as much as they're trying to fool the neighborhood with. I find it really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it is short. They're keeping with that 30-minute story structure.
This was like barely 20 minutes, though. Like the last,
this was like 29. The next one is 36.
No, I know, but including 7-8 minutes of credits, it's 29.
Oh yeah. But I think the credits actually tell a lot of the story too. That's the thing. I think people. So, for example, you get that musical intro at the start, and I do, where it says they left the big city for this place. And I think it's a central idea within this, that they came to this place, and why did they come here? And there are these, this is the, what I think about this show is this is first off, this is a show that is really for people that want to go on an Easter egg hunt. And I think that most of what we see in this show is going to be red herrings. In fact, they're being so heavy-handed with the Mephisto references that I think that we can just take Mephisto right off the table. Because, because there's a quality to this where you get the feeling that Mr. Hart maybe is Mephisto. Maybe even, sort of the Wolfram and Hart kind of idea. And the fact that he says, I don't like it when my wife's head spins around. So there's these little things there. What I actually think, my actual big thesis on this is they are going to be incorporating stuff from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into this story. Because if you will recall, when they did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that takes place in the gap of the blip. The stories in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. takes place I think it starts 2 years after the time travel story it takes place 2 years after Infinity War, but Endgame takes place 5 years after. So this is the world that all of these people have come back to. And this is a world with LMDs. This is a world with alien technology and the framework. And so, as well as quantum tunnel technology that Fitz created. So I think when we're going into S.W.O.R.D. here, I do think there is a quality that is going to be... and of course, we do we get the S.W.O.R.D. logo in this one? I don't think we get the S.W.O.R.D. logo into the next one. I'm not sure.
That's what that was. Yeah, no, that was the second episode, I think.
Okay, well, no, but that's fine. Tristan says there was a S.W.O.R.D. logo somewhere hidden in this.
Really? Can you tell us where?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Tristan says in the end, we see the S.W.O.R.D. logo when we get to that after credit scene. Or actually, not the actual the after credit scene of WandaVision. Because when we pull out and we see which is clearly a woman's hand watching this show. It's a white woman's hand too. That could be Director Hill. We don't know. Although it wouldn't have been Director Hill after the snap, it could be Director Hill. So we may be getting a Director Hill reference in there eventually. But there's a white woman's hand that's clearly watching the WandaVision show, monitoring it. And that's where we see the S.W.O.R.D. logo. So we do get that S.W.O.R.D. logo introduction here. We are going to see more of that as we get into Episode 2. And Episode 2 is its own bag of hammers. But in this one, now, I'm a connoisseur of the old TV shows because, like, one of the few channels that come in on my broadcast TV, and since I'm home all the time because I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home. I'm watching, I put on the TV in the background, and so I have I have decades playing all day. So it's all these old shows from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. So it's fun for me because I can say, oh yeah, I can see exactly where that transition happens between this is a 50s sitcom and now it's a 60s sitcom, and we're going to go into a 70s sitcom, even right down to the music cues. But in this way, I find it very interesting the way they play with the tropes. Like the boss coming over for dinner is an old school trope. But also within that, the idea that the company that Vision works for is a company that makes computational forms, which is an interesting turn of phrase. A computational form. It could be a form for making computations, or it could be computations that create forms like the framework.
Oh.
And the idea that since Vision arrived in the framework, their productivity has gone up 300%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's this idea in here. And then, if we really want to go deep diving into our old Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we recall that the framework came into existence because of the Darkhold, which could tie back into that Mephisto reference that we've gotten. Well, there's lots of Mephisto references. And that's the question that we're left with in this. Because, I know a lot of people thought that that Agnes might be Agatha Harkness. That's like the common theory. Although that goes into something else, which we get to next episode. So I don't want to get too deep into that dive because I do want to save something for that. But there's actually a lot in this story that might suggest that rather this being the way they're going to introduce the mutants to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because as I have said repeatedly, the mutants were already introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when they started to discuss Department H in Canada. That was, I believe, in Season 1, maybe Season 2. They have mutants there. We've seen people like Angar the Screamer who have powers without an origin. So the fact that there are mutants in this universe, whether or not they organize themselves into an X-Men or a Brotherhood of Evil mutant jets, is debatable. But we do know that we have these kinds of powered people in the Marvel Cinematic Universe already. So I don't think it's that, but I do think there may be a way that they're going to be introducing the Fantastic Four. And introducing them in such a way that they have always been here. And that goes into my theory about what's going on in the second episode, so I don't want to get too deep into that yet. Because that's a pretty big deep dive, too. But right now, what we can tell from this story is that everyone is looking at Wanda and Vision as the new arrivals here. And everyone knows they're new arrivals. And they're existing within a framework to be understood by them. Is my take on it. That essentially, and so, I mean, like, your possibilities here are that I think Wanda realized, because they said that at the end of Infinity War 2, is that there's so much more to Vision than just the Mind Stone. That there's a lot of other programs running, and that really, even if we remove the Mind Stone, there may be a lot of Vision left.
He's still like an early version of Jarvis or something, right?
Exactly. And there's an interesting point in this, actually. When, at the beginning, Wanda suggests, hey, what do you say to silver dollar pancakes, bacon, sausage, eggs, hash browns, and fresh black coffee and fresh squeezed orange juice? And he says, I don't eat. Or I don't eat food. And then she says, well, that explains the empty refrigerator. But what's interesting about that is that suggests Wanda doesn't really eat food either. Because if their refrigerator is empty, it's because neither one of them are eating. Because maybe they are in this simulation.
Right.
And it is, like I said, there's a lot of possibilities. Maybe they got shrunk into the quantum realm to enter into the Matrix. You know, my actual, and I talked about this a bit on Capes and Lunatics last night, but my actual belief is that she found Vision in here. She went to a place to find Vision, and she is trying to get Vision to reform himself. That is her goal. She wants Vision to be whole again, and she's got to stay in here long enough to make Vision whole again. Because, like I said, I find it is interesting, and you know, I think that's the problem when you get the two episodes at once. Is now we all know what happens in the second episode, and it's like I don't want to talk about that till we get to that episode.
Perhaps
but really, so much informs it.
In one, because it's like one is like a 20-minute episode and one is like a 40-minute episode. It felt like it should have been a 1-hour episode, but you know.
Well, I think they intentionally want to have the shifts because you do get a decade jump in this. So in the first one, it is this 50s sitcom. Which actually, this is actually an interesting thing. That intro isn't really a 50s sitcom intro because it's too wordy. They didn't really have these big song numbers in 50. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of Dick Van Dyke, which, by the way, Elizabeth Olsen is nailing Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh.
And I got to say this to everybody out there. You want to know everything about Vision, go watch Mary Tyler Moore on the Dick Van Dyke Show and on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, because I think that's where we're moving into. And that, because as it turns out, Mary Tyler Moore as an actress really did have this evolutionary character, starting out as actually, I think she was just a disembodied voice on, I forget which, was it Peter Gunn? I don't think it was Peter Gunn, but it was an old show that was like her first acting gig. She was like, you know, the sexy voice on the police dispatch board. Yes, I know. And he was just pointing out that we can watch WandaVision on PlayStation as well. And then she became the housewife, and then she became Mary Richards on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the woman about town. And so what we
will get subsequent decades represented in subsequent episodes. Like we'll get an 80s sitcom, a 90s sitcom, a 2000 sitcom, all the way until we get to the present, and that's where he finds himself.
Well, I think something along those lines.
That sounds
like,
fun.
Heck, we might even get an
we
Office
get like
episode.
Vision and them in Seinfeld or Friends. That would be great.
Yes. Well, we know that basically. So and this is where it gets like into this merging thing, because it's also, so as an example, that theme song quality of an introduction to a show, that's really a 60s and 70s innovation by, I want to say, Sherwood Schwartz with the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island, although Dobie Gillis had one too. So really we're looking at, and again, it's looking at these characters from that prism of what are they trying to duplicate. And so when we look at the Dobie Gillis theme song, so I guess that's maybe the closest. Although interestingly, that had an animated intro, again predating itself for the animated intros that we would see in the 60s with I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, which we get in the second episode. So it's interesting. But this one has an intro that's kind of similar to the Dick Van Dyke, where it's everyone coming into the room. It's kind of a funny thing where, you know, he walks through the door, drops her, and then walks through the chair instead of tripping over it the way that Dick Van Dyke would. So there's all these little hints that this is the thing. The thing about, I think, Marvel shows in general is that they love their source material. They love going deep into this stuff. And they say, hey, if we're going to do this, then how do we tell that story in a way that's going to reference all of this lore and history and canon? How do we encapsulate that? How do we build out this universe? And with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they have this interesting advantage where they have these deep and complex universes out there, but they're not bound to them. So it's not like there's like lore that they have to put in, but they know they can reference lore and reference lore across genres to tell this story, which I think is, like I said, this is where I always think Marvel is playing chess while DC's playing checkers. It's like, Marvel is thinking 4 steps ahead, and DC is, honestly just playing tic-tac-toe. They're just biding their time until someone buys DC.
Yeah, I think Marvel has earned the right to take these risks and earned our respect enough so that we'll go along with it until the payoff, and we'll trust that it'll be there. I think DC takes big risks without having earned the audience's respect.
Exactly.
First. And then they get nervous that it won't pan out, and then they second-guess themselves, and then it doesn't pan out.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. Is like Marvel has earned our trust by taking big risks and making them pay off, and trusting, trusting Jon Favreau, just trusting. I'm going to say this guy Jack something or other, because apparently this guy's pretty smart. Jack Schaefer, pretty much he had an idea. He pitched it. They liked it, and good for Jack, man. I think Jack Schaefer may be one of these guys we're talking about in several years, or Jacques. I don't know how you pronounce J-A-C. For all I know, it's short for Jacqueline, and it's a female-led series. Probably not, but it's be cool if it was, though. Let me click on that name, see real quick here. Jack Schaefer is no. Hey, look at that. That is a lady person.
Hey.
A female of the variety is our lead, and that's probably why it's so dang good. Because she probably has internalized a lot of female tropes in television and knew how to digest those through Elizabeth Olsen's character. And Elizabeth Olsen is such a good actress in this. Honestly, I'm probably not the first to say it. She's probably the best of the Olsen twins, of the Olsen girls, That's fair. I mean, I love the Olsen twins, but, nothing. One of them can't act her way out of a bag. She was just lucky to be the twin. And the other one is actually a pretty decent actress, but I wouldn't put her at Elizabeth's level. So Elizabeth, congratulations. But for what it's worth, the other two Olsens, they've got $1 billion, so they're not crying in their soup either. So
right.
They're doing just fine. They found their niche. They're doing it. They're making their money. God bless the Olsens and their little clone farm that they have out there in Sacramento. But yeah, so. The meal trope, the dinner trope was interesting because I found it weird that that Wanda clearly can generate things in this universe, but that she couldn't just make the meal. Right. She needed raw materials, and then when she has them, things go nuts because she can't quite make it to be what she wants it to be.
These are the sort of decisions you make when you're in a dream, decisions that don't make sense, decisions that are slave to the impulse you're under at the moment, and you just go with the best possible scenario without thinking about it, and it seems perfectly natural to you. That's the only reason, she can take the chicken, she can uncook it all the way to, like, not just 1 egg, but 30 eggs, and then she can't bring it back up to the regular chicken. Bro, chicken's done. Okay, I can't mess with it anymore. There's a whole little wacky things, but
I know
perfectly reasonable in a dream. And then when they're sitting at dinner and the boss starts going, "Where are you from? Where'd you come from?" It reminded me. Remember in Inception when the subconscious of the person's mind in a dream starts fighting back at you? That's what it felt like. And it was so weird, such a weird departure from the feeling, the emotional timbre of the whole show changes, and all of a sudden we feel like we're in danger or that something's wrong, like on a deep elemental level, something's wrong with the world when they're asking you these questions. You get like this weird, unsettling, and the whole tone of the show changes, and then he starts choking, and all of a sudden it gets really serious, and then she says, help him, and that's when the only time he's able to move to help him. And I'm thinking, okay, are they going to do this right in front of the woman? And what was up with the woman just saying, "No, stop, just stop it"? Like she wouldn't be able to bring herself out of her function. She needed permission to do something too. It felt like, and Wanda all of a sudden breaks out, and they both lock eyes and feel a moment outside of this moment together. That was very, very interesting. So it really, really interesting sort of subtext and subplots happening in front of you that you can tangibly see too. Really, really sophisticated, I thought.
So here's the question. Do you think Wanda caused Mr. Hart to choke?
Oh.
Do you think that while he's doing all this,
my guess
yeah,
is that just it's the organism of the subconscious buzzing too much and not knowing what to do with itself and shorting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it.
Well, it kind of reminds me of when in The Mandalorian, when Din Djarin and what's her name, the jumper, are having the arm wrestling contest, and she's beating him, and then all of a sudden Baby Yoda starts to force choke her. You know, where it's like it is this almost unconscious reaction to feeling threatened. So she's lashing out.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that because that's where I get into this idea that there is something trying to eject them from this reality. That they have created a reality in this place, whether that's in the Soul Stone, whether that's in the framework. Because it's also possible that they're in the Soul Stone right now, and this actually happens.
The interesting question there is then whose narrative is it? Are we looking at it from her perspective? Is she controlling? Or are we looking at it from someone else's perspective? Is it Vision's perspective? Are we just visitors there? Whose narrative are we in?
Well, that's the idea. So here's the idea. So let us just go out on a limb here that after so if this takes place pre-Endgame but post-Snap, it could be that this is something that S.H.I.E.L.D. is working on, where they're trying to figure out where everyone went. So here, and this is just a spitball theory. S.H.I.E.L.D. is trying to figure out where everyone went. They know that they've managed to piece together soul stones and all these things and all these ideas and the quantum realm, and now they're looking into this technology to try and find something. And they know, well, we have a lot of records of the Mind Stone because that was in our archives for so long. We know that Wanda was snapped away, but was also empowered by the Mind Stone. And so it could be that what we're actually observing is S.H.I.E.L.D. looking in on Wanda after the events of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although now maybe it has been restructured into S.W.O.R.D., which would explain why there was an entire S.W.O.R.D. station for Fury to be lounging on when he gets snapped back, that we see at the end of Endgame, or at the end of Far From Home. So maybe what we're going to be seeing is that S.H.I.E.L.D. using all of Strucker's notes, all of Stark's notes, everybody's studying of this thing to try and reach into the quantum realm to find these things, and have located Wanda, and they're trying to reach her, but in the Soul Stone, Wanda, because she's empowered by the Mind Stone, has created this reality and is forcing everybody to live in this reality. Crazy fan theory.
Technically, she is in the Mind Stone when
she's in the Soul Stone. She's in the Soul Stone, and she's actually in the original Soul Stone.
Right. So is that the one Thanos is wearing when Iron Man jacks his stones?
Well, actually, yeah. That is the one.
She is in that stone.
No. She's actually in this, because that is a soul stone from another reality, but assuming that it's like across space and time, it is possible that all souls are in the soul stone at all times. It's your egg theory of the universe.
It's all one stone.
Exactly. Because we know And for some reason, no, that was actually shortly thereafter when he destroys the stones. So the stones got destroyed. Well, the agents are off running their, trying to sort a completely different apocalypse the Avengers weren't even aware of. Which I just love as an idea that, while the Avengers were off doing their little, apocalypse thing, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were actually dealing with other issues. But the idea that they may be trying to figure out what happened after the decimation, using all that information and looking for this person. So the Soul Stone is destroyed, quote unquote, but as we know, things can't be created or destroyed easily. So it's entirely possible that the physical manifestation of the Soul Stone is destroyed.
In that iteration,
but its essence still exists.
Right, because it's a multi-branched, multi-dimensional entity or whatever.
Maybe
and
even
one arm of it was perhaps retracted.
Yeah, and maybe even in the sense of trying to bring the stones back together so they could do the snap, or they could create a snapping effect as well. Before the Avengers even got to it. That's always that interesting thing. And for what it's worth, it would be an interesting idea if, in fact, we have all this idea of, all the heroes got organized real quick. What if S.H.I.E.L.D. had been organizing them the whole time once they were able to access Wanda in the Soul Stone? And so when we get to that on your left moment, it's actually just because, okay, we've been trying to figure out how to bring them back. Suddenly the Avengers bring everyone back, but we've also been able to coordinate everyone up until this moment. So maybe there's something interesting there. Fun Easter egg at the end, if you actually watch all the way to the end of the credits, you see the interlocking rings, which I guess are their wedding rings, and it looks a lot like that inverted Mobius strip that Stark is using for the sense of time.
Oh.
So maybe there's something going on with that. I don't know. You also have all of the fractal roses and fractal butterflies and whatnot. So there's a lot going on in those end credits. Watch the credits. I think there's more to it than meets the eye. Any final thoughts, Mozz?
No, I'm digging it so far. I'm really, really interested in the sort of psychological aspect of what they're doing, whether they're in somebody's brain, whether they're trying to put it together, and how they're using situations maybe to jog his amnesia or something, or what those sorts of aspects are really, really fascinating to me, and that's what I'm really digging about the show.
Yeah. Alrighty then. Mozz, I like listening to us talk. Although I got to admit, sometimes when I listen to my podcasts, they're not as crystal clear as I would like them to be. Probably because I'm not using tweaked audio headsets. I go to the dollar store, I buy the dollar store headsets. They last a couple of weeks, and then they die, and then I go spend another $1. But if you think about it, over 52 weeks in a year, you're going to be spending $50, $60 on these headsets, because sometimes you'll buy them and right out of the pack, they don't work. But you said, it was only $1, what do I care? But if you just go to tweakedaudio.com, use the coupon code Southgate, you can get high-quality audio works that won't die after a week. And if for some reason they did, I'm sure they've got a replacement policy, because it's actually like someone that you can take something back to. You ever try to return something to the dollar store, Mozz? No. They're like, you paid $1. Go away. Exactly. But the good thing about the coupon code Southgate is you can also use that over at huntingkiller.com to get an escape room delivered to your house. Basically, it's a bunch of clues to help Michelle Gray solve a cold case, and that's a lot of fun. I gotta say, that's a lot of fun. And if none of that interests people, they can always go down to our show notes, click on the link to Amazon.com, where you can buy anything you want. But if you click on our link, it tells them, hey, we were listening to Mozz and Chaz, and they told us to go to Amazon and buy stuff, so here's money, give me things. And they say, well, thank you, Chaz and Mozz. Here's a penny. But if everyone does it, everything's good. Anyway, if anyone doesn't... Oh, also while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book. It's written by the Southgate Media Group crew. It's available in floppy paper as well as high-tech digital for your Kindle, so enjoy that. And in the meantime, Mozz, if anyone does that or they want want to talk about their latest purchase from Amazon, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Poz once did, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet DuckTales, a woohoo, possibly Trickster on the CW. Great show. Watch for it. And anything else I feel like at the time at Charlie Essa. That's CHARLIE. ESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle. For what?
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, ladies and gentlemen. You have listened to another episode of Nuff Said. You have heard the tales of those defending this world and the next. Until next time, Nuff Said.